Alex Phillips is going to be preaching for us this morning. Alex and his wife Kate have been with us for, well, just over a year now, I think. And they've both been doing some theological studies. And I think in the coming year, they are getting ready to go out as missionaries to another country somewhere in the region. So, here's Alex, and may the Lord bless his word spoken through him today.
Thank you very much, Micah. Well, may I wish you all a very happy American Thanksgiving. Especially if you're a newcomer here, maybe you're just passing through, it's your first time, or if you're a guest, maybe a friend has invited you along. Particular welcome to you. I hope you enjoy the rest of our time together, and the traditional American Thanksgiving meal we'll be enjoying together afterwards. You're very welcome. Now, you may have noticed something. I have a confession to make. I am, in fact, an imposter today. You see, I myself am not American. I know. I am British, but I hope you'll see past that. You see, I am equally happy to celebrate all things American at American Thanksgiving, whether liberty, freedom, overeating. These are all things I can happily partake in. But actually, jokes aside, we're going to be talking about a Thanksgiving meal even more significant than American Thanksgiving, if you can believe it. This Thanksgiving meal goes back 3,500 years. And from the story we're reading in our passage today, we read the first bit, we'll read the rest as we go through. We'll see how Jesus reinterpreted this Thanksgiving meal in such a way that is incredibly significant, even more significant than American Thanksgiving. You see, national holidays, they shape a nation, they shape a people. American Thanksgiving, the birth of a nation. 4th of July, independence from the British. We won't go there today. Think of Korea. Gaechonjol marks the birth of the first Korean, Dangun. Or Gwangbokjeol, the liberation of Korea from foreign occupation. These are all incredibly significant days in any country's diary. And the ancient Jews, they had a Thanksgiving festival of their own. It was called the Passover. We heard that word just now. But what is Passover? Well, we'll see today that this is a holiday which Jesus took and reinterpreted such that it's as important as American Thanksgiving, 4th of July, Gaechonjol, Gwangbokjeol, and your birthday all rolled into one. This day is a day like no other. So what is it? Well, in the section of the passage we had just read now, Mark, the writer of this book, Mark, one of Jesus' biographers, gives us an important clue. Let me read the first few verses again. I think I've got the same version. No, I don't. And on the first day of unleavened bread, that's just the official name for the Passover, when they sacrificed the Passover lamb, his disciples said to him, "Where will you have us go and prepare for you to eat the Passover?" And he sent 2 of his disciples and said to them, "Go into the city, and a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him, and wherever he enters, say to the master of the house, 'The teacher says, where is my guest room, where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?' And he will show you a large upper room, furnished and ready. There prepare for us." And the disciples set out and went to the city and found it just as he had told them. And they prepared the Passover. So this first section, I'm talking about preparing for Thanksgiving. You see, every feast has its centerpiece. Think of American Thanksgiving. You can have your sweet potato pie, your pumpkin pie, all the trimmings. But what do you need to make it Thanksgiving? A turkey. That's right. In the middle, you need a turkey. No turkey, no Thanksgiving. Take the Korean holiday, Seolnal, the Korean New Year. You can have all your rice, your side dishes. But what do you need, according to Korean tradition, to get a year older? You need the dokguk. No dokguk, no Seolnal. No turkey, no Thanksgiving. No Passover lamb, no Passover. Mark tells us that in the very first verse of this section. This is the holiday of the sacrificial lamb. Turkey for Thanksgiving, dog good for soul now. You need a lamb for Passover. But again, what is so significant about this lamb? Why is this lamb so important? Well, for that, we have to go back to the very first Passover day, which I mentioned before, 3.5 years ago. You see, Jesus' ancestors, the Jewish people, were living in Egypt. They were slaves in a foreign land. And there were two reasons for this. The first was, well, as you know, the Egyptians liked building impressive monuments, such as the pyramids, and they quite liked having slaves do their work for them. But there was a second, deeper reason for the Jews being slaves in Egypt, and that was that they had rejected their God. The Bible tells us that the Jews, instead of worshipping the true God, had turned to the Egyptian gods. And so, God was punishing them with slavery in Egypt. And yet, God also promised to rescue them. He promised to rescue them from the Egyptians, and he sent many warnings to the Egyptians, telling them to release his people. But they would not listen. And so eventually, he said he would send a final judgment, a final warning, so that his people could be released. He promised that he would send an angel of death over the whole land of Egypt. And at night, that angel of death would enter each and every household and kill the firstborn son. You see, both the Egyptians and the Jewish people themselves had rejected God, and this was his just punishment to them. And yet, he also provided a way out. He told the Jews, if they would take a lamb and lead it out and kill the lamb and take the blood of the lamb and paint it over the doorposts of their house, then when night came, the angel of death would pass over that house and the son would be spared. Hence why it's called Passover. And it happened just as God said. The night came, the angel of death went around the whole land of Egypt. And in the morning, the Egyptians awoke to find their sons dead. But the Jews, who had taken the blood of the lamb and painted it over their doorposts, they woke up to life. And more than just that, the Egyptians released them. They woke up to life and liberty. This was the day of the Jewish calendar. Think 4th of July, think Gwangbokjeol. This was life and liberation for the Jewish people. And so Jesus and his disciples were celebrating this, the most important day of their calendar together. My friends, do we not at American Thanksgiving have so much to be thankful for too? We too live in countries where we are free. We can gather at church like today. We can elect our leaders. We have all sorts of freedoms. More than that, we have life. We have our health. We have friends, family, all sorts of things to be so, so thankful for. And yet you might just be sitting there and thinking, actually, Alex, it doesn't feel like I have that much to be thankful for. You see, nobody else knows, but my job is such a drag, and I can barely force myself to go in each day. Or maybe it's a relationship which used to be so close and so sweet has just turned sour. Maybe it's loneliness. You feel like you have no one to turn to when times are difficult. Maybe it's just the stress of life. You feel like there's so much overwhelming you. You don't even have the time to be thankful, let alone think of anything to be thankful for. Maybe you can't put your finger on any particular reason. You just find it's hard to give thanks. You see, even when we are at our most thankful, there's something in the middle that's gone wrong. We only have to live long enough for that to be true. And my friends, if that is you today, if you're thinking that way today, well, I can suggest to you that you will understand the next bit of the story even better. Let me read from the next part, Mark chapter 14, 17 to 21. And when it was evening, he came with the 12. And as they were reclining at the table and eating, Jesus said, "Truly I say to you, one of you will betray me, one who is eating with me." They began to be sorrowful and to say to him one after another, "Is it I?" He said to them, "It is one of the 12, one who is dipping bread into the dish with me. For the Son of Man goes as it is written of him. But woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that man if he had not been born." The party is in full flow. People are enjoying the meal. And suddenly, Jesus turns off the music. He has something to say. Picture Jinhee. She is going to a reunion with her school friends. They go every year. They catch up, have a lot of fun together, eat good food, and just generally see how each other is getting on. But for Jinhee, this reunion gets harder every year. You see, each year, another one of her friends seems to have got themselves a boyfriend. And by now, they've started getting married. In fact, this year she realizes she's the only one left. Will it ever be her turn? Her friends are enjoying the party. Someone's telling a joke and everyone's laughing, but Jinhee just can't keep it in anymore. She bursts into tears. Or how about Amy? She's going back for Chuseok, Korean Thanksgiving, to her parents. She goes every year, and it's just like normal. They make songpyeon, they have a good time together. But for some reason this year, something's a bit off. Eventually it comes to the main meal, and Amy's mum goes quiet for a minute. She says, "Amy, I've been going to the doctor a lot recently. They say I don't have long left." It's the middle of the party, and something has gone horribly wrong in the middle. And this is exactly what happens with Jesus in our story. This is the day of celebration for the Jewish people. And more than just that, this is not any ordinary Passover meal. You see, Jesus, throughout the whole book of Mark, has been built up to be the King of the Jews. He is the one who will release them from their new overlords, the Romans. Just a few days before this very meal, Jesus was riding into the capital city with crowds cheering his name. What huge expectations. And then, truly I say to you, one of you will betray me. With such huge expectations, Jesus says he will be betrayed. Not just betrayed by one of his closest friends. And it's not as though the disciples' reaction is much better. They're just interested in themselves. Is it I? Is it I? Surely not I. And Jesus knows more than just this. He knows that the next 24 hours will see him betrayed, abandoned by the rest of his friends, arrested, beaten, mocked, and eventually killed on a Roman cross. The middle of the party of life, something has gone horribly, horribly wrong. And what is it? Well, the Bible calls this problem sin. Sin, according to the Bible, is when we refuse to love God as we should and to love those around us as we should. You see, it was sin that made Jesus' friends betray him, abandon him. It was sin that all that time ago made the Jews turn away from their God, the Egyptians enslave God's people. And that is our problem today. When we have the problems of life, in one way or another, it comes down to sin. Maybe our own, maybe that of another. Maybe it's just the brokenness of the world around us. And if you remember from the original Passover story, sin has just one consequence. The angel of death God will bring his judgment on a sinful world, on sinners.